first of all, I don't like the word diet. Every person in the world, if you think about it, we've got like 8 billion people on the planet.
Yep.
Virtually no two people eat the same things. I mean, some are similar. Even a husband and wife doesn't eat exactly the same things.
Exactly.
So we're all eating something different. So, but what is the best program? What is the best nutrients?
So welcome everybody to another amazing class for Family That Learns initiative. Today we're in fitness and we're here with Richard Freedman. Thank you so much for being here. He is the managing partner of Golf-fit.com. Super excited to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about Golf-fit.com and like a little bit of your background?
Sure. Well, Golf-fit.com started with myself and a PGA professional, Quincy Hurd. We formed a partnership. He was an expert in golf. He's a PGA professional, and I was a fitness professional. And we joined forces, and we started a business doing combined golf and fitness training.
Love it.
My background is kind of interesting. I spent 32 years with a major energy company, and I was an office worker, and I was not in very good shape. And by fortune of luck, my wife, back in 2000, started to work for an NFL football team, the Houston Texans, and I became friends with the strength coach, and he taught me an awful lot about fitness and training, particularly football players. And then my wife got an opportunity to come out here on the west coast of Portland to work for the Portland Trailblazers, and while she was working, I went back to school and learned about fitness and nutrition, training, and strength and conditioning.
Love it, love it. All right, so today we are talking about reducing the risk and increasing the longevity of a person's life. You know, when it comes to fitness and nutrition, there's got to be some kind of balance. And so can you tell us a little more about like what we're going to be learning today?
Yeah, sure. Well, if you look at our life cycle, I call this the maturity curve. We're born, we reach a certain maturity level, and then we start on the decline. But on the first part of that upslope, when say age birth to somewhere around age 35, we're pretty much bulletproof. You know, cancer is rare, heart disease is rare, diabetes is rare, and Alzheimer's almost unheard of. And then we reach that peak on the downslope as we start to age. Those diseases and conditions I just talked about, they're not rare, they're prevalent. And the question is, how do we reduce the risk of acquiring what I call CHODA, an acronym, and it stands for cancer, heart disease, osteoporosis, arthritis, and Alzheimer's.
Oh, goodness.
And so those diseases are the ones that are most prevalent on that downslope. And the question is, how do we reduce the risk of that?
Love it. So let's get right into it. Okay. So what are some of the factors that we should be aware of? You talked about CHODA. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, I found there are 8 factors that affect how long and how well we live. Okay. The first, and some of them are controllable, some of them are not. The first 2 are kind of obvious, and that is the food that we eat, the nutrition that we take in, and the second, the amount of energy we expend on a regular basis. Okay? And third has to be something, and there's no particular order of these, but third is just aging itself. There's a term, it's actually probably a cosmological term called entropy, and it's everything in the universe is decaying.
Of course.
And so we are actually decaying at some rate, and you know, the longest we can live is probably 120 for women right now, and maybe 116 for men. I think those are about the world records. But no matter what we do, we can't live any longer than that. So the question is, what can we do to get as close as we can to that? But aging is a factor. That entropy, that controlled deterioration is something we can't control. And then there's genetics, and it's huge. I happen to have an aunt who lives in Anderson, South Carolina. She was 105 years old in November, and she is in perfect health for a 105-year-old. She doesn't need a cane or a walker. But here's the thing, she's never exercised a day in her life, and she doesn't need anything special. And so one has to wonder, how does that happen? And it's most likely genetics. I attribute it almost exclusively to genetics. Now, I'm unfortunately not a blood relative of hers, is a relative by marriage, but nevertheless, I don't think most of us, she's 1 in a million, I don't think most of us can hope to live that long without really paying attention to some of the details I talked about. Then there's what I call external factors. These are things like exposure to carcinogens, radiation, viruses, bacteria, accidents, falling space debris, you name it. Those things can change our life and our health. And then there's mindfulness, and it's kind of like mind over matter. And certainly the brain has an effect on our physiology. And stress can be extremely damaging. It creates hormonal changes in our body. And so mindfulness is something we need to pay attention to. It's very powerful. And then there's the quantity and quality of our medical care. So if we're getting the proper medical care, that can ward off a lot of dangers, particularly if women have mammograms and we have colonoscopies and things like that on a routine basis. We can at least prevent some nasty things from happening to us. And then there's the combination of those 7 items, and those are the things that create or affect our health.
Perfect. So when it comes to, you talked a little bit about what can affect our lifespan and everything like that. I'm super excited to hear. One of the things that really hit like a little bit was the mindfulness, because I was on TikTok probably, but I heard the story of a man who got trapped into a refrigerator, a walk-in, and he got locked in, and he was losing his mind. He thought he was going to freeze to death, and he died, even though the refrigerator was broken. Never worked in a day in life, but he literally thought he was freezing to death. So that literally he died. So I think it's very interesting when you talk about mindfulness. Now a lot of people think about like that being a contributing factor about how long we can live. So love that.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to nutrition, I think that's one of the big things that is in everybody's mind of like, you are what you eat. If you're not eating the right things, you of course get sick and X, Y, and Z. So what are some things we should be thinking about when we're talking about nutrition, and what are some ideas or some diets that we should kind of be like thinking about?
So first thing when it comes to nutrition, first of all, I don't like the word diet. Every person in the world, if you think about it, we've got like 8 billion people on the planet. Virtually no 2 people eat the same things. I mean, some are similar. Even a husband and wife doesn't eat exactly the same things.
Exactly.
So we're all eating something different. But what is the best program? What is the best nutrients? And there's 2 things that come to my mind. Number one is, if you look at the statistics, who lives the longest on the planet Earth? There's a group of people in Sardinia and Sicily that are on the Mediterranean diet. I'll explain that in a minute. There's another group in Japan, in Okinawa, who have a diet basically whole grains, fruits and vegetables, and fish that live the longest. And also a small group and a population in Loma Linda, California, that also live mostly on the Mediterranean diet. So if you look at who lives the longest, the Mediterranean diet is the leader in the world. And that diet is basically fresh fruits and vegetables, mostly plant-based. It's fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, a little meat, a little fish, and a little dairy, and a little glass of wine every once in a while. But that diet, along with the DASH diet, which is very similar, are probably the best, at least statistically, they're the best in the world.
So it seems like it's pretty balanced, because you're talking about fish, which has a lot of omega-3s, good vitamins and minerals. You're getting a whole grain, so not really a lot of processed foods. And I know in Japan and in Italy, you don't really see a lot of processed foods. They're cooking, they're catching their own food. So I mean, when it comes to like a diet like the Mediterranean, it's very balanced. It's very, I would say, down to earth and simple. So I love that. So now another factor which I've struggled with is, of course, physical exercise, because I think I was traumatized as a child because I was, of course, a student athlete, and it was always gym in the morning, go to class, gym in the afternoon, then go to practice, and that was my first, I would say, from age 10 till 21, and I have this disdain for physical exercise, but I think what is your opinion on physical exercise? Like how often should we be doing it? What intensity, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, first, there's a relationship between nutrition and exercise as far as our health. They both work together to create the health that we have or don't have. And so I've seen all kinds of statistics and studies, and what is the percentage? In other words, some people say, well, you are what you eat, which is, and some people say, well, you've got to exercise too. My take is it's somewhere around, on average, 65% nutrition and 35% exercise determines our health and wellness. But it differs for everyone. It could be 60-40 for some, 50-50 for another. So there's no hard and fast rule. We're all different, and that's where genetics comes in.
Yep.
But in terms of physical exercise, we have two metabolisms that work our body. There's an aerobic metabolism and an anaerobic metabolism. And there's a big difference between the two, but they both work together to power us, to enable us to move our hands and to breathe, and for our brains to work, and our digestive systems and all the other human systems to work. So what we're really looking at is something that causes each one of those systems to function properly.
Yeah.
So if I look at my aerobic system, and most people who think about aerobics are thinking cardio, which is another name for it. So that is the part of my metabolic system that actually uses oxygen to create energy. And to create that energy, my body has to burn fat. So believe it or not, while we're sitting here, you and I having this conversation, we're burning fat.
Of course.
We're breathing normally, and so our body is using fat as fuel. If I were to punch you in the nose now, right here.
Please don't.
Well, you're bigger than me, so I'm not going to do that. But if I were to do that, I don't need to breathe to do that. All the energy is contained in my muscles. That's an anaerobic event metabolically.
Yeah.
So those two systems work together. So as I start doing movements, for example, a sprint, I can sprint about maybe 100 yards without even breathing. So I can use all the energy it contains in my muscles, but there comes a point where I have to start breathing again.
Yep.
And that's where my aerobic metabolism starts to take over. Those two work together. The other thing about anaerobics is to help my anaerobic system is to build muscle mass. And to do that, I need resistance training. I need to lift weights.
Yeah.
So to have perfect health, but to have better health, you've got to work your aerobic system by doing cardiovascular work, and you've got to work your anaerobic system by doing short periods of intense exercise like sprints and also strength training.
Okay, perfect.
To build muscle mass.
Yeah. So, one of the things that you showed me before was the exercise intensity spectrum or fitness spectrum.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about that. And we'll, of course, put a little image of it on there as well.
So if you think about the entire spectrum of human movement, all right? So we start over on one side of the scale. It's kind of like a speedometer, okay? We start at zero.
Yeah.
Well, being zero is, in terms of physical, is being sedentary.
Yep.
I'm not doing anything, and therefore our body systems are not going to function. You've heard of the term use it or lose it.
Yep.
There is a law that says if you don't use certain systems, they're not going to work properly. So what we have to do is increase our exercise level.
Yeah.
All right, and so the next stage up from being sedentary, let's say, is walking, and then beyond walking is, say, jogging, and beyond jogging is running, and then there's biking and hiking and all kinds of other things, and so you reach a certain point where the exercise becomes more anaerobic, such as strength training, and then you've got CrossFit, and all the way over on the bottom of the scale, the most intense exercise is, say, advanced military training, Navy SEAL training. So you can go all the way from being sedentary. So where is the right point in that spectrum that's right for me? And it differs a little bit for everyone. But there are some studies that show that the right point on that spectrum is somewhere just right of center. And that would be physical activities that are essentially racket sports, believe it or not. They seem to have the best effect on total health. So tennis, badminton, racquetball, pickleball, those are the kind of activities that not only, they're both aerobic and anaerobic, they work our lower body and upper body.
Yeah.
So those kind of things are, at least on the spectrum, are probably, as far as longevity goes and health goes, probably the best. Now, the other thing is, as I start moving across this spectrum, while my health starts improving, the risk of injury starts increasing. So as you get over to the right side, as you get into the CrossFit area, as you get into advanced military training, and I don't know if you just read the other day, there were a couple of Navy SEALs that died during training.
Oh, goodness.
They were doing such intensive training. I don't know what the autopsy showed, but they ran into serious trouble because they pushed their bodies to the limit.
Yeah.
So as we start increasing our exercise intensity, the risk of injury definitely goes up. But there is a point, and I spoke with a professor the other day from the University of Portsmouth in England, and he is studying the behaviors that are necessary to get you in that right, with Goldilocks zone, to try and find what is right for you. That's part of what we do as fitness professionals. We try and find that zone where people can work out or exercise in the right fashion that suits their lifestyle and how much time they have and how much energy they have.
Definitely. And then so like when it comes to like the fitness and nutrition, like how did you adapt it in your own personal life? Like what was your experience when you first started adapting it?
Yeah. So I'll just go back a little history. So when I graduated high school, I weighed 184 pounds. 4 years later, I graduated college, I weighed 195. I went to work, and 2 years later, I weighed 216, had a 40-inch waist. And one day, I couldn't make it up the stairs to my apartment building, and I was only 24 years old. And I said, I got to do something.
Yeah.
And so I started going on diets, and I would lose weight. I'd get down to 180, and I'd gain it back, and I'd lose weight. And I'd do everything I knew how to do at that time, wasn't educated in it. And so I tried all these fancy diets and they worked. I lost weight, but then when I went off the diet, I gained it back. And as I studied to become a trainer, I realized that's a no-no. Diets are terrible because when you come off the diet, what do? You go back to your old habits and you gain the weight back. There's one interesting thing. I don't know if you've ever seen the show a few years ago called The Biggest Loser.
Yeah.
They took people who were grossly overweight, people 400 or 500 pounds, and they subjected them to diets and exercise, and they all lost hundreds of pounds.
Yep.
Someone did a study a few years later after they left the show and found every single one of them had gained all the weight back.
Oh.
And they went, wow, how did this happen? And the reason it happened, these people lost weight too fast.
Yeah.
And what happens when you lose weight fast, your body has a built-in meter that says if you start losing weight at a pace that's too fast, your body slows down the metabolism. And they can even shut it off.
Yeah.
I mean, it says you're going to starve, so it tries to slow you down.
Yeah.
And so these people went back to their normal life, ate even less than they did before, and they still gained the weight back. So you can damage your metabolism by losing weight too fast. And so the rule that I have as a trainer, no more than 1 to 2 pounds a week to lose. That's the right amount so that you don't damage your metabolism and you can keep on losing weight. What happens with a lot of people, they plateau. They go on these diets, these crash diets, and they start losing weight, and all of a sudden the body just shuts down and says, no, I'm not losing any more weight.
Yeah.
And I don't want to die. So that's what happens. So you've got to be on the right program. And we've developed with Fundamental Fitness Labs and golffit.com together, we've developed a program called the 117 adjustment. And it's just a matter of reducing your caloric intake, your energy intake, by small amounts, by a little few calories just each day, so you're not changing your entire, you're not getting depressed because your favorite foods have been denied to you. So
yeah. No, I think that's valuable because I mean, what is it? 117 calories a day for a week. That's 1 pound. Is that not correct?
No, for a month that's a pound.
Month, that's
for a month,
pound.
3,500 calories is 1 pound. So, but here's the power of that. So I lose a pound a month, 12 pounds a year, and 60 pounds in 5 years. All on just cutting. Now 117 calories is just a small handful of peanuts. Yeah. That's all it takes to be over your energy balance for the day.
Yeah. Or a slice of bread,
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous when you actually start looking at calories in food, like what is 115 calories,
Yeah.
and like when you have a slice of bread, and like what's interesting is like I was the 2 sandwich kid. Like whenever my mom was like, "You want a sandwich?" I'm like, "Yeah, can you make me 2?" So like looking back, I'm like about 600 calories for just sandwiches, and I'm just like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So here's the simple way to do this. So let's say I want to lose 1 pound a month, 12 pounds a year, and 60 pounds in 5 years. So let's say that every day I have a bagel for breakfast. Okay?
Yep.
A bagel is approximately 234 calories. So every day, instead of having a whole bagel, I'm gonna cut it in half and have a half a bagel. That's 117 calories saved.
There you go.
So I weigh myself in the beginning of the month, and I weigh myself at the end of the month. If I've lost 1 pound, I know, hey, that worked.
There you go.
If I didn't, then I need to cut another 117 calories somewhere. But after 2 or 3 months, I'm going to learn exactly what it takes to either gain or lose 1 pound.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy. I don't have to adjust my whole
lifestyle
and diet and everything. I can still, if I binge once a week, fine, I binge once a week. But I will know at the end of the month what it takes exactly to lose. So it's an adjustment rather than a diet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that's really what it is like thinking about like, what are you eating? And I also think that like a lot of times it's also a situation of like the size of food we ask, because there's always a small, medium, large.
Right.
And I never ever hear anybody say I would like a small. And I think like if we actually thought about it, I was like, man, if we started just like even changing our lifestyle where like everything is smaller, like our bowls are smaller, our cups are smaller, our scoops are smaller.
Yeah.
How much better we would be off. I mean, it would definitely be noticeable if you start cutting everything to small. But like you said, a half a bagel, I think that's super easy, and I think that's a valuable tool that people can take away from this lesson is, maybe if you're trying to do a lifestyle change, start small, work big, and you even said it yourself, keep track of it. You're like, hey, I'm going to make a small change, and just like one small change and see how it goes a month.
Right. The other thing you can do, and this is huge, our body treats calories differently. So I can put you on a 2,000 calorie a day diet, give you another diet, same 2,000 calories, but one you'll gain weight and one you'll lose weight. And the reason is, one is going to be a diet that has complex proteins and carbohydrates. Another one's going to have a lot of simple sugars. Cakes, pies, cookies, ice cream, Twinkies, bonbons. All those things have simple sugars. And what they do is when your blood sugar spikes, your body releases insulin. Insulin is the fat storage hormone. It's going to cause your metabolism to slow down and store fat. The second thing that happens, and a lot of people don't know about this, there's something called the thermic effect of food. That's huge. The thermic effect of food is huge. And people are confused about calories. And calories, while they're energy units, all right, the body treats them differently. So every single diet on this planet, I don't care whether you go Weight Watchers, keto, low carb, high carb, they're all based on the same principle. It's all based on the law of thermodynamics. Energy entering a closed system minus energy leaving a closed system leaves a positive or negative energy balance. What that means if I take in more energy than I burn, I gain weight. I burn more energy than I take in, I lose weight every single time. Every diet's based on the same, but they'll try and tell, it's carbs, it's this. Well, yeah, if I cut out carbs, all right, I'm probably going to be cutting out some sugary carbs as well. And that's where you can make some advantage. So a low carb diet for people who don't exercise a lot is really good. Okay? But if I'm burning in, if I'm an athlete, if I'm burning energy, I need lots of carbs. Carbs are what fuels my body. We have 3 types of substrates that we take in: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. All of them have a different job. Carbohydrates are used for energy, fats are used for energy storage and for carrying fat-soluble vitamins in our blood, and proteins are used for building muscle, bone, tissue, skin, hair, etc. And enzymes and hormones. So each one of those has a different job. And the amazing thing is, and this is where the keto people are, you don't need carbohydrates. It's true, the body can make carbohydrates from proteins and fats. but that's not the body's preference to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, its body is forcing itself to do that, and it can be done. But when you do that, and I'm not a big fan of keto, at least long term. Short term, it works.
Yeah.
Short term, it really works. But any more than a month or two, you're losing a lot of vitamins and minerals that come with carbohydrates.
Yeah, perfect. No, this is awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and I think we went through a lot of important first steps for a lot of people when it comes to their nutrition. If you guys love this video, make sure you guys like, share, comment down below what you thought of the information, and if you would like Richard to come back and do another video with you guys. And we'll probably answer some of the questions down below as well. Richard, thank you so much for being
welcome.
here. I really appreciate it. So if people wanted to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, it's easy. Just go on our website. It's www.gol-fit.com, golffit.com.
Perfect.
And you can send us notes or comments on there. We also have a new product we're offering on there called the Bess Box. It's probably the only portable fitness workstation on the market that's actually portable. You can take it to the park, you can take it to the tailgate party or to the beach, and you can do hundreds of different exercises with it. And it's a cooler as well as a fitness workstation.
Okay, well, I got to get me one of those.
Yeah.
And if you guys want more information, we'll put it in the description down below. Thank you guys for watching, and yeah, get out there and do some fitness.